Today, I am talking to you about how your body holds and shows the patterns, emotional patterns that you have experienced over your lifetime. And the mind body connection is a very, very powerful tool when we know how to access it. And when we access the body, not just the mind, it gives us access into the subconscious, right? Which is where our patterns are usually held. My name is Sarah, I'm a sexuality coach, and I'm also trained in somatics. Somatic or soma from Greek means the body in its entirety. So we're talking emotions, we're talking the mental side of things, we're talking the physical body as well. So every single one of your emotions has a physiological response that goes with it. Okay. And you probably already know this intuitively because when you start to feel sad, what happens inside of your body, your physical body? You start to cry, all right? And maybe you feel like more energy up in here and a tightness inside of your throat. And that's a physiological response that you get from an emotion. So, likewise, when you are experiencing a happy emotion, you can also experience the same sensations and the same physiological responses. When you're excited, you might smile, you might have a slightly faster heartbeat, have maybe sweaty palms, okay? And interestingly enough, anxiety and excitement have the same physiological responses, right? But it's often the meaning that we give to it. So now that we know the basis of every emotion has a physiological response, then we can start to recognize that there may have been situations in the past where that emotion was not able to fully complete its cycle at the time. Okay, and we see this a lot in trauma, for example. So, for example, say there was a situation that happened in your past, or maybe a time you felt really sad and you felt like you wanted to cry, but you didn't feel safe enough, or you weren't in a situation or a place where that felt right. Okay, so what do we usually do in our society, because emotions are not highly celebrated, is that we squash them down. When we squash down any emotion, it gets trapped and stores somewhere in the body. All right, and an emotion has a cycle. So we start to feel the emotion, we start to feel the sensations, the physiological responses. And then to complete the cycle, we need to feel those sensations and allow that energy, right? Because emotions is just energy in motion. Allow that emotion to complete its cycle. And so an example of that would be having a good cry, after you've experienced a shock, having a good shakeout, okay, just like animals do when they have been chased and they go into freeze mode and then they have a good shake afterwards. Okay, that is them completing the emotional cycle. So humans don't always do this, and if we're able to identify what the emotion is what is happening at any given time, and we allow ourselves to complete that cycle, then we feel more free and more relaxed inside of our bodies, and it goes back to neutral. If we don't complete that cycle, it gets lodged or trapped in some kind of way. All right, which is where now it starts to impact your posture. So you're probably aware of where you hold tension in your body, right? You can even drop it in the comments if you're watching now, like let me know where you hold tension. And I can share some really common places, which is in the jaw and in the shoulders, okay, in the pelvic floor. So even as I'm talking here, you can just check in with yourself and go, oh, like where am I holding tension that I didn't know that I was holding tension? And this is the difference between the conscious and the subconscious, right? Because we are holding tension in our bodies, but we're often not consciously aware of it, okay, until we draw our attention to it and we go, oh, wow, okay. So that previously was in the subconscious until we brought a conscious awareness to it. So if that means that if we can recognize that we hold tension in our bodies in relation to different things, usually stress around us, and that gets stored inside of our body, then we can start to extrapolate or start to get our head around the fact that every emotion and every situation that we're in will have some impact on our physical body. I want to talk you through some postural things and how this starts to show up in a really practical way. So I'll give you an example. I was just having not a super difficult, but like a little bit of a like touchy, uncomfortable conversation with my partner just earlier. And I started to notice like I was starting to feel a bit upset and a bit sad. All right. So then what happened? Well, I started to curl in, right? Because the body's having a physiological response. It's just showing me and letting me know what is going on. It was really hard for me to make eye contact, and I just wanted to curl up. And this is a very natural, normal response of the body. It is actually a form of protection, and it's very intelligent. And so what we can do in these situations is allow this, okay, but also recognize it and bring it into our conscious awareness. Okay, that's really, really important, because as soon as we become consciously aware of it, then we know how to work with it. And if we know how to work with it, then we can complete the emotional cycle and not allow it to get fully trapped inside of our body. All right, so I'm kind of like feeling all curled up into this. So I just allow myself to feel it. I allow myself to kind of be in this little ball. It's okay for short periods of time, but of course we don't want to stay here for a long period of time. Okay, because this is when it starts to become a habitual pattern. And then you start to see people walking around with a bit of a hunchback. Okay, and it could be related to grief, but this particular closing off and closing down, it can also be related to wanting to hide away, wanting to avoid, perhaps not feeling fully worthy and fully confident. Okay, because we also know that when somebody walks into a room that is really confident, you can feel that, right? It's tangible. And that's just because your body is registering the body language or the physiological responses of somebody else's body. So usually when somebody who's really confident steps into a room, they're really open-hearted, okay? They have a really strong posture, they're really open, their chin is level, and they're making eye contact, right? So that's how we know that this is a confident and more neutral posture, more neutral position. If you have somebody who has learnt over time that they're not confident or they're not worthy enough to step into a room in that way for whatever reason, then they'll walk into a room like this, okay? And if you do this over and over and over again, then your body just starts to get used to it, right? So let's look at how this might be relevant for you right now. If you are sitting, I'm going to invite you to stand if you can do so. Or if you can't do that, just think about how you might normally stand. It may be difficult to feel because it's only when we bring conscious awareness to our body that we can actually start to pick up the patterns and how our body is holding on to certain things. So just come into a neutral standing position with your feet about hip width apart. And you may automatically start to notice if your weight is more forward or more back, more left to right, or if you feel more collapsed, okay, or higher up. And I'll talk you through what some of these might mean. So always your own internal interpretation is the most important, and I'll just share my experience and some experiences of my clients. So I noticed within myself when I first started doing this work, I was leaning forward a lot, okay, because I was always in the future and I was always wanting to move forward into the future and always think about the next thing. I was shocked to realize that when I was just walking around town, I was walking like this, like fully forward. And it wasn't until I could bring myself back into center and back into neutral, right, that I could feel more grounded and calmer and less frantic. So part of my patterning, or has been in the past, is racing around, doing things, being very busy, and that shows up in my body with leaning forward, okay, wanting to already be in the future before I've even moved through and felt into my present moment experience. If you are leaning forward, it can also be an indication that you have more of a fight response. Okay, so it may be that you move towards things, maybe you get defensive, a bit passive aggressive, outwardly aggressive occasionally. So this can also be an indicator as well, right? And we know this because when people start to feel anger, for example, they tend to lean forward, their fists tend to curl up into a ball, right? And they start to kind of get here, right? They're kind of ready or bracing themselves for something. You can also find patterns of when people are leaning backwards, okay, and moving away from stuff. Okay, this tends to be the avoiders or the people that are flashing in the situation because they don't want to get involved and it's safer for them to kind of be away. So you can start to pick up what feels more familiar and what feels more unfamiliar. Okay, same in terms of your line. In my training, we call this the line of human dignity or your line of human worth. So just looking at your posture straight up, is your chin more forward? Is it coming back? Are you collapsing in any places in your body? Okay, is it easy to find a nice straight line? All right, so just feeling into all of that. So to wrap this all up, we'll just give you a breakdown of the things that we've just covered. So the first thing is that every emotion has a physiological response. Okay, and we know this because we can see this in real time in the moment, right? When you want to, say you're having a conversation with your partner and you feel like you want to curl up and move away from them, or you start to feel annoyed at them and aggressive and you want to move towards them, all right? So your body is always communicating with you, always sharing the language of what is going on in your subconscious, and your body is having that response without you even having to think about it, which means that it is tapping into your habitual patterns or your conditioned tendencies or the ways that you tend to show up, right? And once we start to get awareness of how we tend to show up or how you tend to show up, then you can start to counteract that, right? If it's a pattern that's serving you well, perhaps you're staying nice and centered and grounded, then that's great, okay? If it's a pattern that's not serving you very well, like you're moving away from situations, avoiding situations, or you find yourself being more aggressive in certain situations, or closing off and hiding away and not wanting to take up all your full space, then we can start to counteract it, okay? Because then we can start to move with it and understand and come back into a more neutral pattern, okay? The last thing is that every emotion has a cycle. So if the emotion is not processed in the moment in its full capacity, then it'll get stored and trapped in your body in some way. Usually that shows up in tension, and over a long time, this will lead to dis-ease or disease or illness inside of your body. So working with emotions and letting them complete their full cycle is essential for your overall health and well-being. So I hope that was helpful in terms of working with somatics in your body. Something you can take away from here is today and into your evening, think about how your posture is, right? And what you tend to do in certain situations and around certain people. Okay, as you start to feel into this, you can also start to get a gauge of the people, that you want to be around, that you feel really open towards, and maybe the people that start to close you down, right? And get curious about why those people start to close you down. And then overall, once you get this full awareness and this full picture of how your mind and body is connected, it's an absolute game changer in terms of working through old stuck belief patterns, core beliefs or core wounds, because we're not just analyzing it and working with it on a logical brain side, we're also integrating it fully in the body so you can feel differently and show up differently, right? Because your posture and how you move in the world is the main way that you communicate, and it is the message that you give to the world and what the world receives from you. So you get to choose the message that you want to show by what is going on in your body, and then therefore what is going on in your internal system. If you're interested in more coaching, just send me a message. This is the most effective way that I've found in terms of working through core beliefs and processing things that have been stuck inside of you for a long time, is working with the body and integrating that mind-body connection. Would love to hear your comments and how this was for you, and also a reminder that you can just start to feel into this and notice what happens throughout your day from here. Sending you lots of love. If you're interested in coaching, would love to hear from you. I work with women specializing in connecting with their body, loving themselves, intimacy, sexuality, sensuality, and just feeling alive and confident. Mwah!